More than 3 million men and women served our country during the Vietnam War. Each carries a unique story inside them about their time in Vietnam. Sadly, a vast majority of these stories have never been told. Why? Because the Vietnam veteran has rarely had the opportunity to tell their story, their experience during the war. Only 1 in 10 American servicemen returned to American soil unharmed. The survival rate of the other 90% who received medical care in country depended on whether or not they took enemy fire, and if they did, the response of the medic or hospital corpsmen that came to their rescue. History shows us the valiant medical staff in Vietnam saved countless lives, giving tens of thousands of soldiers the opportunity to return home to their families, friends, and loved ones. Steve Lepley served as a hospital corpsman.
We were on what they call a reactionary platoon. And basically you're sitting on an LZ waiting for the crap to happen. And it happened. We got called, loaded up 4 CH-46s. I was in the second bird going in, got there, and there's bodies all over the ground. Man, I mean, literally bodies on the ground.
Confronted with the horrific reality, Lepley had just one mission on his mind.
Getting the bleeding stopped. 2 guys, there's nothing we could do. That was obvious. The other 2, you got them stabilized. In fact, they came in, the 4th bird took them out. That's how fast they were out of there. So I barely had time to, it was basically the 4th bird came in, we threw the crew off and threw the bodies on. So that was a matter of about 10 minutes.
Only 10 stressful minutes to evacuate the wounded. These evacuation helicopters played a vital role during the Vietnam War. In fact, many believe the survival rate of our troops would have been far worse if it wasn't for them. In 1962, Dust-Off became the call sign for the medical evacuation helicopters. Over time, the number of medevac detachments grew in Vietnam until the entire country had coverage, and Dust-Off became the universal call sign for all medevac missions. Major General retired Pat H. Brady was a part of the early Dust-Off crews. Brady remembers numerous harrowing flights in Vietnam, including one pickup in dense fog.
One day I get a call, and a kid is bit by a snake. They had some pretty exotic snakes over there. And he's very close to us, very close to Chulai, but he's on an outpost on a mountaintop. And when I got to the mountain, about 500 feet down or 1,500 feet down, it's socked in. But underneath it, it's clear. And so I came to it, and I looked at that stuff and I thought, are you kidding me? He's in that stuff on the outpost? What in the heck am I going to do? So I went into it. And I knew if I got disoriented, I could fall out of the clouds and I would break out in the valley. So I wasn't too worried about that part. So I'd just get disoriented, I'd fall out, I'd come back around, we'd go up, the crews get nervous, I'm getting nervous, they're screaming at me, they're just going into convulsions. And I thought, my God, how in the heck am I going to do this? And then I get hit with a burst of wind that blows me sideways, kinda. That was the breath of God. I was looking out my window to actually look for a hole in the jungle because I thought we were going in, and I could see the tip of my rotor blade and I could see the top of the trees. So guess what? I got 2 reference points. You can see 30 or 40 feet in that stuff, and that's all you need is 2 reference points. I know I'm right side up. I turned that H model UE sidewards and hovered right up the side of the mountain, right through that stuff, and into the outpost. We got the kid, got him to the hospital, and he lives.
If you didn't lose your life in combat, there was a good chance a U.S. soldier suffered a life-altering injury. Congressional Medal of Honor recipient Gary Wetzel served as a door gunner during the war. Wetzel lost his left arm in combat. He still remembers his good friends, Timmy and Bart, who were both in the helicopter with him when they took a rocket-propelled grenade to the tail and crashed.
Like I said, we're down in the Delta, and the tide's coming in. It's hard for Timmy to keep his head out of the water. So Bart and I pushed, pulled, and shoved him, got him next to a rice stack on an angle so his head was out of the water. Then I got him right here, and Looked at him, and he looked at me, and then I thought he died. And then you have all this anger, and you figure it's your time, and my ship's over there, and I kind of took what was left of my arm and tucked it inside my pants. I got my Thompson, and I run a little bit, fire a little bit, trying to get back to my ship, and I got nailed in the leg. And I remember being down on that one knee, but then after that I don't remember. And the next thing I know, I'm in my gun well. And VC were all grouping up ready for a human wave attack, and I got my 60, and I'm like, said a few choice words, come on, and they started coming, but I just mowing them down like flies. And why they didn't shoot me, I don't know. I mean, they're 5-6 feet away. They could have went bang.
Wetzel survived, but only because of the medical care he received in the field.
The corpsmen that worked in the hospitals that helped me out with what I needed were, the best. Yeah, you just, those guys are, a breed of their own, and a special breed. And at times when I go to functions and we talk about this unit or that unit or whatever, and I'll be on the stage and I'll say, let's have all the corpsmen up here, everybody. And I get 10, 15, maybe more. And I let them know, ladies and gentlemen, these are the guys that you should thank. These are the guys that put their life on the line for a lot of us to be here.
If a soldier, Marine, sailor, or airman was lucky enough to survive the front lines of the Vietnam War and be dusted off to a hospital, their journey to recovery was just beginning. Lieutenant General Frank Ledford, who would become Surgeon General during the Gulf War, served as an orthopedic surgeon during Vietnam in country at the 36th Evacuation Hospital.
My job was, my job was frustrating. I probably at that time was a pretty typical surgeon. And surgeons like to do things by schedules. You like to schedule your cases. You like to have all the resources there right now, planned for well in advance. And so there's a frustration that all military surgeons have to get over. And that is you have periods of calm. Nothing happens. And you get bored. And then all of a sudden you get smashed and you're overrun with patients. I mean, once or twice we'd get 30 at a time. And that's that's the definition of a mass casualty. Mass casualties when you got more than you really can easily handle. The toughest I had to do were the amputations. And I know one I felt so badly about. I worked so hard with a vascular surgeon to try to save a leg on a guy. We did a vascular graft, and we lost the leg. So I ended up doing the amputation. There was a few cases like that nearly made me cry. And there was one case in which I started to faint after I'd been there about 9 months. And I was helping the neurosurgeon do an especially tough case. I didn't tell you, we had general surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, an eye surgeon, a urologist. We had a panoply of surgeons, and we all helped each other. I worked with the general surgeons, and a lot of the patients had multiple wounds. You have head wounds, chest wounds, and orthopedic wounds, extremity wounds, and so we'd have to double team lots of cases.
Lieutenant Colonel Janice Nark was a nurse stationed in country. She vividly remembers the first day she arrived.
I like everybody. It's just so true. The heat and the humidity and the smell just hit you in the face like nowhere else you'd ever been. And you were in Nam.
Vietnam was not only a bloody battlefield, but it was also extremely hot. 304,000 men and women suffered wounds in country, but many more succumbed to a variety of illnesses. Sickness was rampant among American troops during the Vietnam War, and if enemy bullets didn't kill you, your surroundings just might.
These guys were so sick. All of them Vietnam vets. They were every color you can imagine, and then some. And the doctors were either having a field day trying to figure out what was wrong, or they were completely overwhelmed with the vagueness of all of it. We had malaria and typhus and fevers of unknown origin. I mean, you name a tropical disease, we saw it. And sometimes they were multiplied, they were overlapping. These guys were dying. They were 19 and 20 years old, and they were dying.
Dying is the last thing a service member wants to think about during war. But the harsh reality exists, and in Vietnam, soldiers would often wonder if they were living their last day. In an effort to lift the spirits of U.S. troops, the American Red Cross started a program in World War II, and it continued through the Korean War and Vietnam.
Our job was a field morale program.
They were known as the Donut Dollies. The Vietnam War Red Cross Donut Dollies were young, college-educated women who served a one-year tour in-country as morale boosters for American troops. They ran recreation centers, visited hospitals, and thanks to the mobility of the UH-1 Iroquois helicopter, traveled to frontline landing zones and base camps to bring games and smiles to soldiers.
They wanted it as it is a profession. It has a serious purpose. It isn't just smile and show your ankles and be jolly all the time. You had to be sensitive to other issues.
It wasn't an easy job, but it was a vital one, requiring patience and compassion. Holly excelled at her job.
Because I listened to them. I think that's the most important thing. You gotta hear what they have to say. It may not be the thing you want to hear, not critical stuff about politics or anything like that, but how hurt they were that Sam and Joe got transferred to another unit, and they were hoping they could pull this one together.
Years after the war, Holly tried to find one soldier who had left her a note in Vietnam. Through some research, she found the soldier and called him. His wife picked up the phone.
At this point, I had been to the wall several times, and when she told him there was someone on the phone for him, it had something to do with Vietnam. Smart lady. I got on the phone, I said, "Bobby, you wrote me a note when you were going to Hawaii with Ken on R&R. And he said, "Oh my God, you kept that?" I said, "We would keep anything if we thought it would keep you alive."
To stay alive and to keep their friends alive is all the brave men and women in Vietnam wanted. They served their country with dignity and respect. If asked to do it again, they would. And if you ask them if they're glad they served, they say yes. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial is dedicated to the fallen of the Vietnam War, those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our country. The wall is also a poignant place for those who survived to pay their respects, to reflect and to remember their comrades. It is a place where young men and women come face to face with the service and sacrifice of their forefathers.
One of the problems we have is the same problem that you've seen with visitors to the World War II Memorial. It took them so long to get that built that now there are not that many World War II veterans that are still physically able to come see it. Vietnam veterans are dying at the rate of something like 77 a day. That's to me, is one of the urgencies of getting this built, is so that Vietnam veterans will have a chance to see it and appreciate and enjoy it.
John Wood served as a helicopter pilot in Vietnam and now serves on the board of directors for the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. Wood believes the Education Center at the Wall is not only a tribute to Vietnam veterans, but a treasure for the American public.
Having something like the Education Center, we're circumventing the textbooks, we're circumventing the news media, and here it is, folks. You read and look at all of this, and you draw your own conclusions and interpretations.
Without an education center, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial may be just a wall of names for the millions of young visitors to the mall. These stories we've heard here today, stories of bravery, heroism, and selfless sacrifice, are in danger of being lost to history.
What nothing else in this country has ever done, but truly demonstrated who the people were that died for their country. That's why the faces with the names and the background that goes with it, that's why it's so important. They're just not names on a wall. They're not just names on a headstone. They are my flight school classmate Jim Moore, who was from Weeping Water, Nebraska, killed in March of 1968. Richard Allen, my hootchmate, killed in November of 1967. It's going to help with what I believe is this huge disconnect between the average American and their military.
Just as our military does today, the Education Center will have many missions. It will preserve the stories and faces of our heroes forever. It will provide context and understanding for every visitor to the wall. It will continue to educate the public about one of the most tumultuous periods in our nation's history and about those who answered the call of duty in that difficult time. Tonight, we show our deepest appreciation for those who not only served their country, but who served their fellow countrymen. These men and women put their lives on hold not to fight, but to heal. They cared more for the survival of others than for themselves, and we owe them our greatest gratitude. It is time we give back to our greatest gift, the American servicemen and women.